Today on Notsam Wrestling, John Cena's final match is confirmed, and oh, is it controversial? Seth Rollins gives clues onto when he could be coming back. What does it say going into 2026? A giant Raw being promoted to start the year. Tony D'Angelo returns at Deadline, and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Before we really get started today, I want to talk to you guys about Surfshark. Surfshark is... well, it's everything you need, not only for online security, but also for content that's geo-blocked all over the place. Surfshark VPN is your go-to solution for secure internet access, whether you're on public Wi-Fi and worried about somebody getting in, whether you're worried about censored content that for some reason you can't get. Surfshark is going to get you through all of it, and Surfshark is not like a lot of other VPN companies. They've got over 4,500 servers in 100 countries. No logs VPN and 24/7 customer support. You can secure your privacy and get all the content you want with Surfshark. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Right now, if you go to surfshark.deals/notsam and use my code NOTSAM to get an exclusive deal, you'll get 4 extra months at checkout. The link and code are in the show notes and episode description below. That's 4 extra months at Surfshark with code NOTSAM. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, and this is where we'll start today, okay? The final match for John Cena in the WWE in professional wrestling. John Cena's final match is officially confirmed on Monday Night Raw. Gunther beats Solo Sikoa. Jey Uso is defeated by LA Knight. Both of the Fatu children are beaten in the semifinals, and we get to the finals. On SmackDown, it's Gunther versus LA Knight. And after about a 17-minute match, Gunther makes LA Knight tap out. Gunther wins the tournament. Gunther goes on to face John Cena in the main event, not in the opening match, as was erroneously reported, but in what we would assume will be the main event of Saturday night's main event on December 13th. John Cena's last match will be against Gunther, and, there's a few things to talk about. It is rubbing some the wrong way. It's rubbing others, well, I don't know how it's rubbing you. I don't want to comment on that, quite frankly, but some people are okay with it. Some people love it. Many do not like it. We'll talk about all of it. First of all, there's a couple of things, right? You start thinking about LA Knight, because I think that, and LA Knight has this unbelievable ability that he's been close so many times, but I don't think there's anybody better at making you believe once he gets close than LA Knight. LA Knight is so good at making you go, yep, that's the guy who I want to win, even if he's not going to win. We interviewed him on the Raw Recap podcast on Monday, and it was kind of honestly as real a conversation, as real an interview as I've seen with him. And I was like, yeah, dude, I love this guy. I would love to see him beat Gunther. And this is where we're talking about feelings and the moment and how it makes you feel right now, which is what you should be doing as a fan. You should be getting lost in the story of what's happening now, as opposed to, looking at this whole thing in terms of puzzle pieces and trying to book it yourself. Like, I feel like too many of us, and myself included, I mean, I'm talking about me. I find that if I get too lost in trying to book the territory myself, if I get too lost in trying to prove to myself in my own head that I can, run the whole thing, as I think a lot of us wrestling fans do, then we forget to maybe just sit down and see how these things make us feel. Don't look at a piece of paper and decide 3 weeks in advance, well, if LA Knight were to win this match, this is how I will feel, this is how I would feel, this is how see what happens and tell me how you feel as it's happening. I think this is essential to pro wrestling, and this is something that casual fans do, but us hardcores sometimes have trouble doing it. We're so used to intellectualizing everything And podcasts like this have popularized that. And I think pushed that along. And that's not a compliment to myself, but it is what it is. It's kind of like I don't know, there's a lot of good that comes out of wrestling podcasts, but a little of that bad is maybe an over analytical way of looking at it instead of just looking at it with pure and utter feelings. That's why the emergency podcasts are there, because we have feelings. But so, and by the way, LA Knight goes in the good guy, Gunther goes in the bad guy. You want LA Knight to win the match, you want Gunther to lose the match. I mean, it's wrestling 101, and we get to the match, and LA Knight taps out. Now, it is key that he taps out because Gunther, going into this match, said, I don't care. And it's almost like the way Gunther has been portrayed in this tournament. Like, there's been so much that's been happening. There's been so many different stories, right? All the overarching story of John Cena and wrapping up his career. The story of Dolph Ziggler returning. The story of Zack Ryder returning. The story of maybe Jey Uso coming further than you thought he would. And the story within the tournament. I mean, when you look at it, the tournament did a lot for a lot of people. Within this tournament, Jey Uso got to where that character needed to get to in terms of crashing out at the end of the thing. Solo Sikoa was portrayed as far more lethal, far more powerful, far more of a threat to an opponent than he has been in a very long time in this tournament. Not just the guy in the suit with the tank top making the funny faces, but the guy who put 16 spikes, one after the other, into John Cena's neck the last time John Cena was around. That Solo Sikoa came back in this tournament. And it felt like, and there was more, but it felt like as all this was happening, Gunther was almost on an island by himself. And once the bell rang, whoever was in the match with Gunther, like whatever they were attached to outside of it, had nothing to do with what was happening here. Gunther's story has just been, okay, I'm back now and I'm going to win matches. And in a world where there is so much going on, even with the people across from him inside the same ring, that in and of itself becomes a very unique character trait. To the point where, like, LA Knight is doing a great job with these impassioned promos about how he is the irresistible force in this scenario. He is the one who is indestructible. He is the one who, when it feels like his legs are being cut out from under him, when it feels like there are forces trying to hold him back, he is the one who pursues no matter what. He is the one who will never quit. And what better story could it be for Gunther to be like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'm going to go in, I'm going to beat LA Knight, just like I've beaten everybody else. And I want you all to pay attention to how I beat LA Knight, because that's how I'm going to beat John Cena. So now coming out of this, we see LA Knight tap, and that pushes forward the idea that Gunther is not only going to Saturday night's main event to beat John Cena, Gunther wants to win via submission in John Cena's last match. Now, every time somebody loses, there will be a percentage of the fans that goes like, well, this is it for that person. I think this tournament was a net positive for LA Knight. LA Knight coming off of a failed pursuit for the World Heavyweight Championship, going into this tournament and getting all the way to the end and having a competitive match with Gunther in the finals is good for LA Knight, in my opinion. It's not the best for LA Knight. The best for LA Knight would have been he beats everybody, then he beats John Cena. That would have been the best. But there are it's not either the best or buried, right? I think that there's still a net positive and there's still room for what's next from LA Knight. As I said before, it wouldn't bother me one iota if LA Knight was revealed to be the masked man, if LA Knight turned heel. It wouldn't bother me one iota if LA Knight became a big babyface. I still think that there is world championship gold in the future of LA Knight. I think 2026 is going to be very interesting for LA Knight, but the end of 2025 is not about LA Knight. All of Gunther's matches in the tournament, LA Knight included, have been competitive, which is fairly unique in terms of a character that's built like Gunther. A character that's built like Gunther is built to be the destroyer. For lack of a better term, the eater of worlds. The guy who comes in and ruins the good time. As I said before, Gunther is the great no-fun wrestler. When all the fun is happening, Gunther is there to ruin it. Gunther is the reality in a world of pure and utter fantasy. Gunther is not only, because people will say he's boring, he has no character. Gunther is all character. Gunther is maybe the most deeply in character wrestler of anybody on the roster. You have no idea who Gunther is outside of the ring. You have no idea what Gunther is like when he goes home. You only call him Gunther. That wasn't even his first wrestling name, let alone actual name. But there is no other side of Gunther. There is no human being behind Gunther. He is just this guy that ruins your fun. And that, to me, can be a more difficult character to stay in than any of them. But Gunther having competitive matches, I think, is very, very interesting, because that's what makes this a unique character. You've had guys before, Brock Lesnar, for example, that just goes in and beats everybody, and he ruins everybody's good time. Except Brock didn't have, for the most part, competitive matches. If Brock had a competitive match, it was because he was putting you over. Even if he won the match, but it was competitive, Brock put you over, because most of his matches were not competitive at all. In fact, early on in like 2002, John Cena early John Cena had a competitive match to Brock Lesnar. If you want to look at the difference between like early John Cena when the company was behind him versus later early John Cena when the company was ready to give up on him, there's one Brock Lesnar match that's competitive that Brock wins. There's another Brock Lesnar match that's not competitive at all that Brock Lesnar wins. And it's two different things. John Cena, when he's first starting this Doctor of Thugonomics character, right around WrestleMania 19, has this television rivalry with Brock Lesnar. And the fact that it's even competitive, or John Cena is able to get back up at all, is what they're doing to build John Cena. When John Cena was just in his shorts, Brock would kill him. And that's a big difference. The fact that Gunther doesn't kill anybody, he just beats everybody, is a very, very unique thing for somebody like Gunther, a character that beats everybody. It's usually not that way. There are a lot of people that are upset, that don't want to see Gunther get John Cena's last match. There were a lot of people that wanted, some kind of fantasy match, a legend to come back, an NXT guy to get in there, a young guy to get in there, something. Just not Gunther. John Cena's dad hit the podcast circuit. I guess he learned from Jey Uso's dad to hit that podcast circuit and let the world know what he thought. I can't imagine if my dad had a podcast. I have sympathy for John Cena in that respect. But he said that. The criticism is that Gunther doesn't need it. That's what John Cena's dad said. That's what some fans have said. I mean, who cares? Gunther has already beaten everybody. I saw one thing that said Gunther has never faced adversity. And you're like, he literally faced adversity this year. They're like, Gunther has never had his back up against the wall. Gunther's never faced adversity. Gunther's never lost like that. And it's like he literally lost to Jey Uso at WrestleMania after he guaranteed. That was this year. This calendar year. In the last 365 days, he's had to rebuild in the face of adversity. He literally had to have a rivalry with Pat McAfee to get himself back on his feet. Like, it's happened multiple times. And that's actually my point, right? That I think, in general, the idea that this match will do nothing for Gunther, that beating John Cena, if he is to beat John Cena, because I don't want Gunther to beat John Cena. I think he will. But if I'm like, okay, what is best long term? As long as you stick to the plan, Gunther beating John Cena is best for long term. If John Cena is not going to be around and Gunther is. But what's best for Saturday? John Cena winning. Of course, it's all we want to see. But maybe the fact that that's all we want to see, you make the choice, right? When the entire audience wants to see one thing, either you give it to them, and that's the best business decision, or you don't give it to them, and that's the best business decision. Do you want everybody to be happy, or do you want people to be sad? Because both of those emotions can lead to money when translated correctly, can lead to stories when translated correctly. It just becomes a matter of what is the direction on this particular night. WrestleMania 39. the decision was leave people sad. WrestleMania 40, the decision was leave people happy. Depends on where we want to take this thing. Where are we going with it? But the idea that Gunther beating John Cena does nothing for Gunther is a fallacy. It is illogical. It is inaccurate. And it makes no sense. To say that is to just not be somebody that watches wrestling, in my opinion. I mean, Cody beating John Cena at SummerSlam did something for Cody Rhodes. You can't tell me that Cody beating John Cena did nothing for Cody. Cody beating John Cena did something for Cody. John Cena passed the torch to Cody Rhodes. And again, well, why wouldn't he pass the torch to like a young guy from NXT? Because the torch is a bright, burning, white hot torch. And somebody who is ready to carry it is somebody who is ready now to be the next John Cena. The guy that gets the torch, when you are passing the torch to somebody else, they run with it then. You don't pass the torch to somebody else and say, sit here for 15 years until you're ready to run with it. Not to say, but to say. Passing the torch to Cody is like, okay, now it's the time for you. And that SummerSlam victory against John Cena had merit for Cody Rhodes. Cody had already beaten Roman Reigns. Cody had already won the WWE Championship. Cody had already finished his story. Cody had already main evented WrestleMania 4 times. He had main evented WrestleMania in a row. 39, 2 at 40, and 41. 4 WrestleMania main events in a row under his belt. And yet still, beating John Cena elevated Cody Rhodes, passed the torch effectively to Cody Rhodes. By the way, everything that I just said, beaten Roman Reigns, won the WWE Championship, main evented 4 WrestleManias. Gunther has done none of those things, for the record. It doesn't feel good. Gunther beating John Cena doesn't feel good. Gunther beating John Cena does not feel like a celebration of John Cena. It doesn't feel like John's getting one last hurrah. It doesn't. It feels like if it happens, you get to Saturday night's main event and you feel bad. I'm going to feel bad if Gunther beats John Cena. But that's who Gunther is. Gunther is the guy that makes you feel bad. And you can't just have him at 7 all the time, because eventually you know when he's going to lose. And if you know when somebody like Gunther is going to lose, then it's not going to feel so bad, because he's not going to win the matches that he's not supposed to win. We all know the difference between a match leading to the blow-off match and the blow-off match. And Gunther is in a position now where more often than not, in a big rivalry, he loses the blow-off match. He is built as the credible heel that the underdog cannot beat. And then we build the underdog, and then the underdog beats Gunther. At WrestleMania 39, we build, WrestleMania 30, well, whenever, was it 38? No. Look, point is, Sami Zayn beat Gunther. Was that not at a WrestleMania? WrestleMania 39, Sami was in, maybe that was WrestleMania 40. Sami Zayn beat Gunther. Right? At WrestleMania 41, Jey Uso beat Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. The reality is that he is the guy who the underdogs can eventually beat when they are on the biggest stage, and that's what he's designed to be right now. But you can't stay in that space, because people will know that the underdog is going to beat you. And when people know the underdog is going to beat you, they are not the underdog anymore. So it loses the whole thing. But what if you had a guy that the underdog actually couldn't beat? What if you had a guy that even on the biggest stages, the underdog wasn't going to beat it? And what if you had a guy who baby faces that weren't underdogs also couldn't beat? What if you had a guy a babyface that was the world champion could not beat? What if you had a guy who the babyface that was the greatest of all time could not beat? Then you end up with a super heel. And it's a super heel that can retire John Cena and Bill Goldberg in the same year. And that super heel will legitimately get booed. And that's what makes him a bad guy. And it's a transcendent bad guy to the point where even online, we're talking about how much we hate him. Except he's not getting silence from crowds. He's getting loud noises from crowds. Except it's not that nobody's showing up to see him. People are buying tickets to see him. That's what a super villain is. And I think that you do have the potential to create a super villain in this scenario in Gunther. Gunther is a villain right now, not a super villain. Because when the going gets tough, he doesn't win. When CM Punk, when it was said, CM Punk, your dream can come true, but all you have to do is beat Gunther. And it's at a stadium on the highest level. He beat Gunther. Because CM Punk at WrestleMania, at SummerSlam, CM Punk was portrayed as the underdog. I mean, this is a guy who has been in the business for a minute. Can he beat this Gunther who has no respect for CM Punk's legacy and is just there to destroy your dreams? Yeah. Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, CM Punk. Ultimately, when it gets to the highest level, Gunther is still the bad guy who loses. Who's the bad guy that didn't lose even on the highest level? Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. There is big money in having a heel like that. And there are a lot of stories to tell when you have a heel like that. And by the way, when you have a heel like that, people will hate that heel. Oh, will they hate that heel? And they'll tell you they're not even going to watch wrestling anymore because they hate that heel so much. But let me ask you a question. When Roman Reigns stopped being a supervillain and started to dip his toe in being a babyface, what happened? Everybody loves him. When Brock Lesnar came back to face Roman Reigns and was not a supervillain anymore, was a babyface, what happened? Cowboy Brock Lesnar, everybody loved Cowboy Brock Lesnar. He was like one of as big a babyface as you could get, as is Roman Reigns right now. So if you can follow that pattern, it's a difficult thing to do. But if you can do it, what you need is the right person and the right circumstances around that person. That's how it worked with Brock. That's how it worked with Roman Reigns. That's how it may work with Gunther if he beats John Cena. And mark my words, Gunther will go on a tear. I hope they keep Gunther far away from either of the world titles, because if he's able to get his hands on either one of them, if you want to follow the story logically, he ain't losing it for a very long time. He needs to go to WrestleMania and win this year. He needs to go to SummerSlam or next year. He needs to go to SummerSlam and win next year. All of it. Because he has had adversity. In every big match, he loses. So what if you took that energy he had as Intercontinental Championship and put it on the champion and put him on the highest level where nobody can beat him? Eventually, something would turn, he would lose. Eventually, you lose. And then when you come back as a babyface, people go crazy for you. And I think that is the long play in Gunther. Now, all that said, maybe he loses. I'm giving you a scenario if he beats John Cena so that, you don't start, getting online and threaten to never watch professional wrestling ever again because your heart's been broken. Well, there are merits to this. Do not believe these things that you read on the internet. Think logically instead. However, if John Cena wins, then John Cena wins. We just get to have a party. Gunther is not going to, by the way, it's not one or the other, right? It's not like either Gunther becomes a supervillain or he's trash. If Gunther loses to John Cena, he continues to be the Gunther that he's been this entire time. And that's not a bad Gunther. I like that Gunther. There's nothing wrong with being that Gunther. If that's where they want to go, they're the two choices. Either Gunther becomes a supervillain and we have a sad night on John Cena's last night, or we keep Gunther exactly as he has been for the most part, and John Cena gets a victory to end the thing. And by the way, that'd be great. John Cena beating Gunther. I mean, you kidding me? People are already getting upset over the fact that Gunther's going to win. So if Gunther doesn't win, oh my God, what a thrill that all is. But if he does, and he may, I'm not pessimistic, I'll say, about the future. The question is, will Saturday, it's going to be, how do we feel on Saturday? What is the intention? And no matter how we feel, right? No matter how we feel on Saturday, what's the intention with Gunther for the future? Because the amount of equity that Gunther will gain if he makes all of us sad, it had better be equity that benefits Gunther and that benefits the WWE for years. Because there is a way to give Gunther all that equity and drop the ball. That's possible too. That's a horrible scenario. That's a possible, it's happened, right? So it's a two-pronged attack. You put all this equity in Gunther, then you execute on it. And if you don't think that you can execute on it to a point that Gunther benefits from it for years and WWE benefits from it for years, then by God, don't do it. But if you can, there's at least an argument. We're going to get right back to it, but let's talk about Lucy. If you're into nicotine, Lucy Breakers are 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. These Lucy Breakers are nicotine pouches with an extra surprise. Each pouch holds a capsule that can be broken open to release extra flavors and hydration, all kinds of different flavors. Also, different strengths. Keep it chill, give yourself a bigger kick. As an adult, you know what works for you. It's so easy. Set yourself up with a subscription and have Lucy delivered straight to your door. No hunting it down. No going shop to shop. It'll be there when you want it. Let's level up your nicotine routine if you have one with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/notsam and use promo code notsam to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co and use code notsam to get 20% off. Now, here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. I did see, by the way, that Seth freaking Rollins was on the Rich Eisen show recently. Now, Seth has developed a great relationship with the great folks at the Rich Eisen show. He has filled in for Rich Eisen when Rich has been on vacation and whatnot. Not suspended, as Becky Lynch claimed that I was when I was on vacation at Sirius, but vacation. But he was asked on the Rich Eisen show about his recovery. And of course, when Seth Rollins gets asked about his recovery, it's with a little eyebrow up. Because we don't know, when we say, how are you doing with your recovery? Are you really injured? And look, that's how you know that whether, I knew that was going to happen, or I didn't know that was going to happen, or you shouldn't lie about your injuries, or what. That's how you know the ruse of the century at SummerSlam worked. Because now that he's got this injury, people don't believe it. And no matter how much evidence there is that it's real this time, people don't believe it. And now it becomes this possibility that he is the masked man at War Games. He was clearly, when they asked him about his injury, he said he's on track with his recovery. He said, I'm on track. I'm out of the sling, he said. And he wasn't wearing the sling. He was wearing his Chicago Bears jacket on the show. He said, I'm out of the sling and I'm on track. He was clearly playing coy to keep from fully crushing any rumors, because that's the other thing. He doesn't want to stop rumors about him not really being injured, because the mystery, everything being kept up in the air, is only good. But also, I don't think he wants to stop the rumors about him potentially being this masked man at War Games. Although at this point, I don't think, because he lied about his injury previously, that Seth Rollins could crush the rumors if he tried. I think it's always going to be part of the conversation. You know, one thing I have to say that I love about the masked man not being revealed on Monday Night Raw this week, the fact that that's a mystery that's just kind of out there. It's acknowledged. It's acknowledged that it happened. We know that it's out there, but we still don't know who it was or whether Paul Heyman knew, or we really don't know any details about it other than Seth Rollins was in the building. But what I love about that is that, in my opinion, the longer that it goes on, the less that it has to be the guy that was actually in the cage at War Games. As a matter of fact, the fact that it's been a week and we don't know who did it, we don't know anything about this masked man, there's no question in my mind that it absolutely does not have to be the human being that entered the cage. By the time that mask comes off, you put whoever you want under the mask, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think that it should be like Omos. I don't think it should be like Rikishi, like somebody whose body type just looks like nothing like what we saw. But as long as it's within like a stone's throw of reason and you know, rationality, it's pro wrestling ultimately. You know, the man behind the mask is simply an entity at this point, to be revealed at some point, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I've seen people like do zoom ins on his eyes and see how he moves and see how, and it's like, that's why, you know, and I really actually appreciate all the news and dirt sheet sites and whatnot. And I say that with love and peace and love and respect, that quote this podcast and the ideas that I have on it, because like, it opened up the door, because I had said, you know, on the emergency pod or last week's pod, I had said, who knows, maybe Jericho ends up being the man behind the mask. And there were a lot of, you know, here's what happens. Here's the real problem. There are a lot of people who read a tweet or you know, just see a headline, and they make content based on the tweet or headline. They don't do any research whatsoever. I got all this research, you know what I mean? They don't do any research whatsoever. So they go like, oh, there's some people who think it's Jericho. That's crazy. Jericho can't climb that fast. And it's like, yeah, that was all brought up. The whole point was that he would reveal himself to be Jericho. It doesn't mean it was Jericho in San Diego. But if Jericho is coming in at some point, you could save the mask reveal. You could. I'm not saying you will. I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm saying it's a possibility. You could, if you're getting Jericho, have Jericho unmask once he's contractually able to unmask and go, yeah, that was me at Survivor Series. Because, like, what is somebody going to say? You weren't allowed to do that contractually. We're putting on a show here. And also, you know, who's saying boo? You see what I'm saying? So, yeah. So I love that we can continue that conversation, and it can be absolutely anyone. However, assuming the injury is legit, which I do absolutely believe that Seth Rollins' injury is legit, they are highly speculating that when Seth says back on track, the high speculation is that Seth could be back sometime in February, that Seth could be healed sometime in February if he's doing all his work and everything. That's the speculation. I have no idea if it's true. I am not a doctor. I have no in with his physical therapist. I don't know anything about it. But the high speculation is February. So that what was it? November, December, January, February. It's like 4 months, you know, possible. Or even if it was October, I don't know. But the only thing that I hear when people start throwing that February word around, right, is that I go, okay, if you're cleared and okay to come back in February, is there any way that a couple of weeks before February, before that date, you might be able to just come back and do a couple of things? You know, the beauty of a battle royal is that, like, for a lot of guys that are training, their first wrestling match is a battle royal, because you don't have to do everything that you have to do in a wrestling match. You don't have to tell that whole story. You have to figure out a couple of things that you can do to just get the point across, dump somebody over the top rope, and if you're not going to win, eventually get yourself dumped over the top rope and take that bump. If you are going to win, even easier. You don't need to worry about all that. And I can't help but notice that right before February, like the day before February, there's a big battle royal. If Seth might be cleared in February, I don't know, is there any way that he could be able to come back and just do a couple of things at the very end of the Royal Rumble? January 31st is the date of the Royal Rumble. That is so close to February. Can you imagine Seth Rollins, even if the rumors are that he could be back before WrestleMania, number 30 hits, Seth pulls number 30 and Burn It Down hits? That's going to be as close to 2007 John Cena as this generation is going to see. People would absolutely lose their minds. And I know they say, well, this year's Royal Rumble is in Riyadh, so it becomes very difficult maybe to have surprises. That's what some people are speculating upon, that it would be a little bit more difficult to have surprises in Saudi because you have to get them all the way there. Travel becomes so complicated, but I don't know. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm also not a travel agent. Is there a world where Seth can just come in on a private plane separate from the rest of the talent? Is there a sort of a more separate area where Seth can show up? Is there a different hotel in Riyadh that they could put him in until the Royal Rumble? You know, I get that it would be complicated, but isn't it worth all the complication if you can have that moment? Burn It Down hits at number 30, and here comes Seth Rollins. Because, you know, the thing about it is, and I may be getting myself excited, but it completely changes my view of what could be happening at WrestleMania. Because all Seth would have to do is be able to do something. I mean, he's already out of his sling. Do something by January 31st. Because he has to just jump in at the end of the match. You could have it down to like 5 guys, right? Do a lot of the eliminations earlier. He's coming in at 30. Have it down to 5 guys. They're eliminating each other. He just needs to get a couple eliminations, and that's it. Because not only will he just have to do that spot, he doesn't technically have to wrestle full force for another, 2 months, 2.5 months. He's got like 10 weeks after the Royal Rumble before it's WrestleMania. So just coming in and doing a little bit and then not really wrestling a match until he's absolutely good and ready to, I think is entirely possible. And then he can win the Royal Rumble. Seth Rollins winning the Royal Rumble this year would be huge because there are a lot of people that are assuming, well, he's gonna be part of the immediate post-Royal Rumble plans. But what if he's not? And if he were to win, who would Seth Rollins face at WrestleMania? There are so many possibilities of who Seth Rollins could face at WrestleMania. Literally all of the Paul Heyman faction. Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Braun Breaker, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. Like, everybody is in play. Seth Rollins is now at a point where, except for Becky Lynch, he has no friends and only enemies. And he will be on a revenge tour like you've never seen when he gets back. So who will he face? Well, in figuring that out, I think it's important to note the tradition of the first Raw of the new year being a massive, massive Raw continues in 2026. We're going to get right back to it, but let's be real for a second. Confidence in the bedroom changes everything. When you know you can perform there, you know you can perform anywhere. That confidence is going to carry into every part of your life. That's why Rugiet's Go Long is so important and isn't just another pill. It's a confidence game changer designed to help you get harder and last longer when it counts. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action pill that works faster and lasts up to 36 hours. No more timing anxiety, no more second-guessing yourself. Imagine walking into any situation knowing you've got what it takes. That's the confidence Go Long delivers. Getting started is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online at Rugiet.com. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your door. Are you ready to level up your confidence? Connect with a provider at Rugiet.com and use promo code NOTSAM to get 15% off and see if a prescription is right for you. That's RUGIET.com and use code NOTSAM to get 15% off today. Use the code to support the show, and so Rugiet knows that we sent you. I think that, honestly, the first Raw of the year is a bigger Raw than the Raw after WrestleMania. That's the new biggest Raw of the year because they it seems like that Raw is taking the place of what was once the day one PLE, right? Because 2 years ago, that day one Raw was where Jinder Mahal came back, and then The Rock came back and gave him a beat down, and then he talked about sitting at the head of the table, and the audience went crazy, and then Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble and pointed at Roman Reigns, and the whole thing, I mean, then the SmackDown thing, and I mean, it really did launch something that none of us could have seen coming, but it started at day one Raw. And then the next year was last year. That was, of course, the Netflix Raw, where you had Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, where you had Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, where you had Seth Rollins and CM Punk. And now the 2026 landscape completely gets set on that January 5th Raw, because on Monday we found out, Paul Heyman points out to Adam Pearce that Braun Breaker pinned the champion in War Games, that Braun Breaker pinned CM Punk, and then later in the show announces that the match is official. And it's amazing that he's doing it over a month in advance. But on January the 5th, on Monday Night Raw in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, it's CM Punk versus Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, who has been touted as the future of WrestleMania, gets a shot at CM Punk's World Heavyweight Championship. And I mean, if you are being touted as the future of WrestleMania, can you imagine Braun Breaker going into WrestleMania as World Heavyweight Champion? I think when we hear the future of WrestleMania, we think of Braun Breaker one day getting to main event that show in a fight for the title. I think there's a very real possibility that Braun Breaker goes into WrestleMania as a defending World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, I think that, you look at it, and number one, it's Braun's first shot at the World Heavyweight title. Braun, I believe he was deliberately left out of the Roman Reigns thing. I believe that it was Bronson Reed versus Roman Reigns, because it was not a position they wanted to put Braun Breaker in yet. I believe that they view Braun Breaker versus Roman Reigns as a potentially giant money match sooner rather than later. And so they said, let's wait on that. The fact that Braun Breaker did not have a match with Roman Reigns, the fact that Braun Breaker has consistently been touted as that future champion, the fact that Braun Breaker, I believe, is not put in certain matches because at this point he should lose them, but they don't want him to lose them, so he's not in the matches at all. I think that all has to do with the fact that the ascension of Braun Breaker is going to happen far sooner than people realize. And I think that there's a very real possibility that it starts 2026. I would put it at least 50-50 that Braun Breaker takes the championship. I mean, Braun's promo on Monday Night Raw was unbelievable. I loved Braun's promo. on Monday Night Raw, talking about CM Punk, talking about their history that we were not aware of, talking about the things that CM Punk said to him backstage that was not part of canon. It was not part of the storyline. Let's see if you can learn to cut a promo with the big dogs, is what CM Punk said to Bron Breakker, according to Bron Breakker. And he goes, well, la-dee-da, this is the promo. And the fact that Bron Breakker put it out there like that, this is the promo. If you screw up after that, you're finished. And he didn't screw up. I mean, it was a forever promo. It was a one day I'll do a career retrospective podcast about Bron Breakker and highlight that promo as the moment that things changed. And when I saw that promo, I said there is at least a 50-50 shot that Bron Breakker on January 5th is going to take the World Heavyweight title from CM Punk. Starting 2026 with Bron Breakker as champion, it would be amazing. And while because it would really push forward, this is what we're doing in 2026. 2026 is going to look like nothing you've ever seen before in WWE. We have all these stars, maybe more than ever, but part of it is the stars that we're building. And every time Triple H does an interview, he talks about how deep the bench is and how what really excites him is what they've been building just underneath that top level. And I think that Bron Breakker is the type of guy that allows them to put their money where their mouth is and go, yeah, who would have thought? I mean, can you imagine with the roster that you have, making Bron Breakker a world heavyweight champion, getting to headline a WrestleMania with Bron Breakker? And that's a key too, right? Gunther was world heavyweight champion. He didn't headline a WrestleMania. He didn't headline that WrestleMania. Not with Jey Uso. So, you know, that was Seth Roman and Punk that headlined that WrestleMania, and Cody and John that headlined that WrestleMania, not the World Heavyweight title. Imagine if Bron Breakker can headline, and there's enough story there, and you can get there. You've got months to get there, that you can absolutely not only have the title on him, but tell a story where it's like, yeah. And part of it is, like, as champion, if Bron Breakker were to win that title on January 5th, that's when he starts defending the title, and defending the title a lot, and beating a lot of people, to the point where you go to WrestleMania and it doesn't make sense that he would lose. Right? Because for Punk, it's like the visual of CM Punk as champion is amazing. The moment CM Punk wins the title is amazing. There's so much history. We've waited so long for this, but ultimately, CM Punk is in the main event with or without the title. The title, in this instance, unless you've got a great story surrounding the title, CM Punk could be champion or doesn't have to be the champion. He's still the draw. He's still the guy who's selling tickets. He's still the guy people are going to see. So if you can have a CM Punk on the show and a world heavyweight champion on the show, that's a double dip right there. And especially if it's a world heavyweight champion that CM Punk can chase, because now you can use all that CM Punk magic to put guys over. And I think that that's a wonderful thing, you know? So if Bron Breakker starts 2026 as champ, now you see where I'm going, right? We're just talking about Seth. If Seth wins the Royal Rumble, then who's he going to pick? Could it be Seth and Bron as your WrestleMania main event? Could Bron defend his title against Seth Rollins? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Like, you want to talk about a WrestleMania with a main event that looks like 2026, with a main event that is like, whoa, and who's this new guy, Bron Breakker? You know, who's the big guy now, Bron Breakker? I remember when, like, Roman was just starting to get big, and I would go to the barbershop to get my beard done. I understand you could save your jokes. And they go, who's the big guy over there now? Rock's cousin, right? Roman Reigns. Who's that big guy right now? Wasn't he like a Steiner brother or something? Who's their guy right now? Who's that? Bron Breakker. Yeah, that's the guy. That's the beginning of it, you know? And you got all these guys around that can help push him forward. I think it could be really, really good. So if Seth versus Bron Breakker as a WrestleMania main event. Well, now you've taken a match that would be great to see at WrestleMania for Seth to get his revenge for the Vision turning on him. But because Braun Breaker beat CM Punk for the championship, well, now it's the main event of WrestleMania. And you know what else it enables Seth Rollins to do? Just have a little passing in the hallway and say, hey, Punk, I'm going to do what you couldn't. I'm going to beat Braun Breaker. So now if Seth Rollins does beat Braun Breaker at WrestleMania, he's done the thing that CM Punk could not, which motivates Rollins because there's no love for CM Punk there either. But then again, before we get ahead of ourselves with going, okay, now Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins is your main event of WrestleMania. What if the Raw, the first Raw of the year, and this is where my mind started going crazy, and you could stop me, at any point. But what if Raw after WrestleMania Raw to start the Raw after New Year's Eve, the first Raw of 2026, what if it really was massive? There are rumors floating around that Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes might not happen at WrestleMania, that it's going to happen, that there was an intention there when Roman stared down Cody Rhodes at the end of War Games. But what if it's not the WrestleMania main event? See? Because you could do, right? One thing I think, without going off the ranch, Triple H went on the Survivor Series post show and he put it in the air. He questioned, do you really need Roman Reigns to qualify for a title match at WrestleMania? Do you really need Roman Reigns to win the Royal Rumble? Do you really need Roman Reigns to win the Elimination Chamber? Isn't Roman Reigns at this point kind of above that? And I think that is an argument one could make. I think that there is a possibility that one of the big segments on the day one Raw, on the January 5th Raw for 2026, is you announce the main event for WrestleMania and you do a contract signing. Imagine that. If you go in to 2026, that first Raw, and you go Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes is your WrestleMania main event. And you can play with that now for the entire first quarter of the year. Maybe Roman Reigns has to put that match on the line at some point in a match. Maybe Cody Rhodes has a title match before WrestleMania, and Roman Reigns has to be thoughtful of that as well. But I think that that's something you could easily do, because you could take the Royal Rumble and say the winner faces the World Heavyweight Champion, and then you could take the Elimination Chamber and go, maybe Cody has to defend his title in the Chamber. Maybe Braun Breaker or CM Punk had to defend the title in the Elimination Chamber. Maybe it's a tag team Elimination Chamber like they've done in the past. There's a million things that you could do. And what you then do is go, okay, well, guess what? If you're thinking about buying tickets and going to Las Vegas, what if I'm just going to tell you right now, it's Roman versus Cody. You don't have to wait until February. I'm telling you in January. If you're thinking about doing it, book your travel. That's the main event. I think that is a very, very possible scenario. And I didn't think that until Triple H on the Survivor Series post show said he might not. But once he said that, I was like, okay, I got cooking. But what if that isn't the WrestleMania match? And what if that contract signing doesn't happen on day one Raw? What if the match happens? What if the Raw to start 2026, January 5th, what if we have Braun Breaker versus CM Punk and we have Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns? What if we just do the match on that Raw? I mean, it would be insane, and I get it. What are you talking about, Sam? Why don't you drive some ESPN subscriptions? Why don't you sell out a stadium with that match? Yeah, you should. But also, sometimes in wrestling, you just do stuff because it's like, boom, we're dropping a bomb. Here's how we're starting 2026. Are you going to walk out of Raw with two new champions? With Braun Breaker and Roman Reigns walking out as new champions? That is mind-blowing. And if you are doing that, and Seth Rollins wins the Royal Rumble, well, now who's he facing? Is he going to choose Braun Breaker? Or is he going to choose Roman Reigns? Or let's say Cody Rhodes is the champion. Cody Rhodes said, I never have to wrestle Seth Rollins again, but Seth won the last match. What if Seth says, well, I know I can beat Cody Rhodes? What if Seth and Cody is the main event for WrestleMania? There's a million different ways you could do this. You could shock the world and have that match happen at Brooklyn Raw. Leave Brooklyn with two new world champions. Put Cody in the Rumble. What if Cody has to fight in another Royal Rumble? And you go, Cody Rhodes has been in And the American Nightmare version of Cody Rhodes has been in 2 Royal Rumbles. He's won them both. Now you have Cody Rhodes in the Rumble. Now you have CM Punk in the Rumble. Now Seth Rollins is coming back in the Rumble. Do you know the final 5 you could get with that crew? What if Brock Lesnar shows up in the Rumble? Do you know like the magnitude that you could have in that Royal Rumble? I mean, and that way, on January 5th, by the end of the night, you've completely thrown WrestleMania up in the air. Everybody's already predicting where it goes. You completely throw it up in the air at that point. And you know me, I'm an advocate for a more chaotic environment. I love a chaotic narrative. Very importantly, one that also includes a satisfying landing. Like a very bumpy flight, but the smoothest touchdown on the runway that you've ever had. That's what I like in my stories. Bron beating Punk gives us that. Cody Roman Mania contract signing, that would be cool. But real chaos, Braun and Roman winning titles on the first Raw of 2026? I mean, that's how you get an absolutely insane start to the year. You don't have to. There are many ways you could do it, but that's one way to do it. I did think the deadline, NXT deadline, was great. It was a great show over the weekend. I cannot wait for Oba Femi versus Cody Rhodes. Oba Femi versus Cody Rhodes is now officially happening at Saturday night's main event. I love that they added that stipulation in advance because I think that it gave people even more of a thought that Ricky Saints was going to retain. That not only has Ricky Saints not been champion that long, but obviously, you know, Ricky and Cody are friends. Obviously, that's going to be the match. And then when it didn't happen, it was like, oh, whoa. So now we got Oba Femi versus Cody Rhodes, and I really think that this is going to be, other than John's retirement match, this is going to be the match. I think that this will be the match that upholds John Cena's truest intention for what he's trying to do with these matches. I think this is going to be the match that it exposes a lot of people to Oba Femi. I think this is going to be the match that really launches him. I think this is going to be the match that makes people go, why don't you bring up Oba Femi? Why don't you bring up Oba Femi? Why don't you bring up Oba Femi? I think it's going to be really, really noteworthy. I mean, I also think that Bayley versus Sol Ruca is going to be great, you know? I think Bayley is going to remind us how good she is. I think Sol Ruca is going to show the world how ready she is. I think, honestly, that I wouldn't be surprised if Bayley and Sol Ruca are sitting there going like, hey, how do we bring back the magic of like Takeover Brooklyn, of Sasha Banks versus Bayley? And I think they're both capable of doing that. I have very, very high expectations for that match and it being a game changer. So I'm super excited to see all that happen. I loved both of the Iron Survivor Challenge matches. I thought they were great. Javon Evans winning and then having that stare down with Oba Femi only for the lights to go out. And I've got to say, an awesome return for Tony D'Angelo. I love how invested people have been in Tony D. I think this is going to be so good for Tony D. He left looking like an extra on The Sopranos, and he returned looking like a full-fledged Batman villain. I mean, he looked awesome. I love this version of Tony D'Angelo. More serious, less cartoony, not playing mafia guy. I think he's going to be a real threat. And also playing into the idea that he beat Oba Femi. Because he beat Oba Femi for the North American Championship. And Oba's got to look at this guy, and now it's like, okay, I beat the one guy that beat me, Ricky Saints. No, you didn't. Because it wasn't just one guy that beat you, it was 2. I'm the other one. And so now to leave, and I just think that's such a cool thing, to leave that show and to leave Deadline and have both Javon Evans and Tony D'Angelo lined up for shots at Oba Femi with a match with Cody Rhodes on the horizon for Oba Femi in a week after Deadline is amazing. And like the amount of times that I read speculation that Tony D could be the guy behind the mask from War Games, I was like, this is great for Tony D'Angelo. Like the fact that people are this invested in him, that they're putting him on that high of a pedestal. It's just such an awesome, awesome thing. So I thought it was a great night. Thought it was a great night for NXT. Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Big TV deals, before we get to the emails, big TV deals. There was an announcement that Netflix was acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery, which of course is huge because the networks that AEW is on, TBS and TNT, as well as HBO Max, are all owned by WBD. And Netflix is obviously the home of WWE globally and Monday Night Raw domestically. And so there's a lot of speculation in terms of what that will mean for wrestling. I know there are people trying to stop the merger from happening because it's, I guess, a lot for Netflix or whatever. But like, I think Netflix has said they don't want Warner Brothers linear television stations. So TBS and TNT, I think, would be out of the deal. But then where does that leave HBO Max? And what kind of deal does HBO Max have with AEW? Does AEW end up on Netflix, or would they just lose a streaming home and somebody else get the television stations? I have no idea. It's all so interesting, but I think that will be one that is just wildly speculated upon by a lot of us wrestling fans that really don't know how the television industry works anyway. And speaking of the television industry working, TNA earlier in the week, last week, made a huge announcement that on January 15th, 2026 is going to be a big year. On January 15th, TNA is moving to AMC. AMC Television, huge cable network, gave us Mad Men, gave us Breaking Bad, is now giving us the return of Impact on a major cable station. So Thursday Night Impact shows up January 15th. I'm hoping for a huge first episode. I mean, they have to make an impression, right? I think that first episode will be live. I'm hoping there are a lot of live episodes. But I mean, that's the show where Santana has to win the title back. Has to. Like, that's the show where I think they maybe blow off the NXT Invasion angle, where TNA gets the big dub. But I think if there's two things that I could have happen on that show, it would be Santana winning the title back, and it would be AJ Styles either wrestling or setting up a match. You know, just because I think that, like, the Santana moment would be big in terms of pushing TNA forward, and the AJ moment would be big in terms of showing how important the legacy of this company is. So we'll talk about that as all of the discussions go on. We've been talking about it as well over on SiriusXM on Notsam Wrestling Live, which is on Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7 every day, Monday through Thursday from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern. But I'm anxious to hear what you all have to say. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com is our email address. It's NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. Let's see. Clyde writes in, "Hey, Sam, hope all is well." It is well, as a matter of fact, Clyde. What are your thoughts on a Gunther submission victory over John Cena this Saturday? Well, it was heavily implied on SmackDown that that's what Gunther was going to go for. I'm not talking about a regular pass-out submission, but a physical tap-out submission. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the plan, that's what he's going for. Cena has only 5 other documented times that he tapped out, and the last one was in 2005. Kurt Angle. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Never Give Up. Never gives up. So that the fact that he would tap out on his way out, I mean, if you're going to go out on your back, that's as going out on your back as I've ever seen anybody do. So, yeah, I mean, I would not be shocked at all. If they really want to do it, that's how you really do it. Let's see. Lewis writes in, Sam, love the show. Hope you're doing well. I am. Following the result of NXT Deadline, do you see Ricky Saints call up to the main roster imminent and even potentially being the masked member of the Vision from War Games? Now, interestingly enough, Lewis, you are not the only person who suggested that to me after Deadline. There were other people in my life that suggested Ricky Saints as the masked man, and I don't know, but I will tell you this. From the beginning of the Vision, and I probably did it on the podcast, there were 2 guys that I said from the beginning of the Vision that I thought would be great in the Vision. One was Logan Paul. I said that very, very early on. And the other was Ricky Saints. I said that very early as well. I said if there was one guy from NXT to join the Vision, it should be Ricky Saints. And I said I think Logan Paul would do that too. I said I think Ricky Saints fits the Vision more than anybody else in NXT. So if you do call up somebody from NXT, I think that's who it should be. That's what I had said early on. So, yeah, I mean, I think it would be really good for Ricky Saints. I think it would be very interesting to see. You know, it's difficult because it's difficult to really pinpoint what the vision is doing right now. And Logan Paul is a little bit easier because you can picture a Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins match, but is the vision going to completely blow up when Seth Rollins returns? And if so, do you really want an NXT star in there? I guess it depends. Avik writes in, I think a few weeks ago when I wrote in, you picked Randy Orton for the men's Rumble winner. Is that still the case? Well, I said it could be Randy versus Cody, but now I got this Seth Rollins idea in my head. You know, if you switch the titles, CM Punk could be back in the Rumble. I mean, ask me after Raw. Ask me in January. You know, I told you where it was going from then, but I don't know. Ask me on the 6th of January what I think. Let's see. Mark writes in, hey, Sam, my PTC and wise man on all things wrestling. Help me with something. Maybe I just have a twisted psyche. Over the years, there have been some wrestlers that I actually enjoy more as heels. Road Warriors back in the day, Roman, Jacob, Rhea, and Oba. I cheered when Hawk and Animal turned on Sting. I threw up the ones when Roman was in his tribal chief phase. Is something wrong with me? As always, I acknowledge you, my PTC. No, there are a lot of people like that. There are a lot of people who love the heels. That's one of the questions that you ask people as kids. You know, there are kids that always loved the heels. My buddy growing up, who was a wrestling fan, my best wrestling friend when I was a little kid, like 3rd grade and on, he always liked the heels. I didn't get it. I like the good guys. I like Diesel. I like Brett. I like Shawn. By the time 96 rolled around, 95, I like Goldust. So I started to like heels maybe a little more then. But no, I mean, I think heels are interesting. Plus, listen to everybody you just mentioned. Road Warriors, Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, Rhea Ripley, and Oba Femi. You do not like heels. You like heartless ass kickers. All of those heels as heels just heartlessly kicked everybody's ass. That's what you like. Those are the characters that you like. I get it. Those are guys and girls are fun to watch. I get it. You know, even an ass kicker, when they become a babyface, they start to have some kind of feelings, and maybe you don't want that. Dan writes in, love your show, longtime listener. Jericho, if he's coming back to WWE, the logic says Rumble, but assuming contracts would allow, wouldn't it be more fun if he was a mystery opponent for an NXT start next week's Saturday night's main event, and who would you pick? I don't think that would be more fun, actually. I think it would take away from the whole purpose. I think that, I don't know, I feel like Chris Jericho coming back, it would almost be like enhancement talent at that point, the NXT star. Who would be paying attention to the NXT star if Chris Jericho came back? The story would be that Chris Jericho came back and beat whoever it was. I mean, probably like Miles Bourne. If you're making, Miles Bourne would probably be my pick because Miles Bourne is great and they would put on a great match. But like, I don't see how Miles Bourne gets over if Chris Jericho comes back and beats him. And if Chris Jericho shows up and Miles Bourne beats him, then it's almost like, is Chris Jericho back in WWE to go to NXT? You know, I don't think I agree with your logic. Cody writes in, hey, Sam, it's Cody from Toledo. Okay. So I know you said that Brock and Cena's story is over, but I'm having a hard time accepting John getting squashed on the first ever ESPN PLE just to set up Brock for the future. I mean, I don't know why you're having a hard time with that. That literally, the sentence that you just said sounds like one of the more logical sentences ever. Cody beat John Cena. Why? So John Cena could pass the torch to Cody. Dominic Mysterio beat John Cena. Why? So that John Cena could put a young guy over and set him up for the future. Brock Lesnar beat John Cena. Why? Because Brock Lesnar is going into 2026 an absolute monster for the WWE. I mean, it's as simple as anything can possibly be. And those names that I just listed, like John Cena got beat by Cody. There's no sort of, oh, I got to get one more match with Cody. John Cena got beat by Dominic. There's no sort of, oh, I got to get one more match with Dominic. Like, you know, is it possible and would it make sense if we see Brock show up and try to interfere in Cena's last match, which then forces Gunther to confront Brock for trying to ruin his match, setting up a confrontation while also turning Gunther face? I think a face Gunther could go far in this against the pool of Vision heels. This would at least buy your Lord and Savior Roman a few more days above ground, because as soon as Brock is ready, he's going to put him down. Your personal friend, your parasocial friend, Cody. P.S. If the last professional broadcaster moniker ever falls off, you could always go with the most successful sociology major of all time. Thank you, Cody. I mean, no, I think, no, I think, I guess it's possible, but why wouldn't you want Gunther to beat Cena clean? Like, why wouldn't you just want him to, if you're, like, isn't that the most Gunther thing? To have Brock Lesnar involved in some squirrely finish that you're never going to pay off because it's John Cena's last match. It's not going to get paid off. And then what? So now you're telling me that your alternative to Brock Lesnar beat John Cena because he's going to be a monster in 2026. Your alternative is he beat John Cena so that, Gunther can just go beat Brock Lesnar. Why wouldn't Gunther just beat John Cena? I mean, like, why would he have to skip the step and then go beat Brock Lesnar? Is John Cena in your scenario winning that? Or is is Gunther winning that? I mean, if anything, Brock Lesnar, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. It could happen. But it's the most like, this whole buildup has been around Gunther being that guy who just beats people and there's no sort of asterisk. So then to add an asterisk and say that makes Gunther a babyface is almost like, all right, I guess. That's a lot. Especially since Gunther, like, Brock Lesnar already has, like, stuff with Heyman and the Vision and all that. So, I think Brock's got pretty big WrestleMania plans. He was sitting at the poker table with Punk and Roman and Cody. Let's see. Look at this. Pancho from Ecuador writes in. I love it. It's an international podcast. This is a global podcast. I've emailed before talking about the farewell tour and how much I've enjoyed it. Cena is my GOAT, and I just feel so lucky to have had time in an entire year to say goodbye to him. I'd love this tour so much. However, I also love it when my OPTC fantasy books. With only 2 dates remaining, I still stand by. There's 1 date remaining. You wrote this on the 6th of December. There's 1 date remaining. I still stand by the idea that the heel run was really fun and the turn itself at the Chamber was perfect. The turn was perfect. The heel run was not perfect. Knowing what we know now, mainly that Rock wouldn't come back and that Cena should turn back face by SummerSlam, what tweaks would you have made to make the heel run a little bit more cohesive? Okay, great. I don't mind this. That's a really interesting question. So you're saying we leave the moment at Elimination Chamber as it is. I think that I would have John Cena show up on Raw immediately and say, I did not sell my soul to Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne and I happen to agree on one thing, and that's that people need to be accountable. Cody Rhodes needs to be accountable for what this company has given him. This company does not revolve around Cody Rhodes. Okay? And so paint Cody Rhodes there and then say, and as a matter of fact, one of the main reasons I did this was because you all need to be held accountable. You all need to be held accountable for the way that you treated me. You all need to be held accountable for the fact that you booed me. From 2006 until 2020, for 14 years, I gave you my all and you spit me out. And now you think that you get a retirement tour? That you just get to nostalgically look back upon? No, I'm not. I'm through giving you what you need. I'm done with it. And then that's sort of how you get the crowd involved. That's how you get Cody involved. And that's also how you immediately take The Rock out of it and make it clear that The Rock's out of it and I didn't sell my soul. I just happen to agree with Dwayne. You know what I mean? And it's like, And people want to know why Travis Scott was there. Travis Scott was there because I agree with what Travis Scott agrees with. We know that having mainstream celebrities are good for the future of this business. We are not Cody Rhodes who are selfish. We are not Cody Rhodes who want the entire business to revolve around us. I am giving you a year so that somebody can prove they're better than me. But there is nobody here that's better than me. Because if anybody was better than me, they would understand that having somebody like Travis Scott is going to bring eyeballs to this product and is going to make the business healthier. Boo, boo. And then Cody Rhodes can come out defending wrestling. Far be it from me, John, to think that what's going to bring eyeballs to this product is good wrestling. Because as you know, John, they've never told me I can't wrestle. You can't wrestle. You can't wrestle. And then we get to WrestleMania, right? And the story is John and his mainstream eyes and all of it. And he can still do the Blackout Tron, and he can still do all of it. You can really kind of have the same match that you had at WrestleMania, except there won't be expectations for The Rock. Cody Rhodes is now, Travis Scott comes out now because John Cena specifically mentioned him earlier. And by the way, I'm doing this all with 2020 hindsight because, I know it's a lot easier to do things that way, to be fair. You asked me to do it, so I'm doing it. And so I do the exact same match at WrestleMania, except the context would be built around John Cena agreeing with Dwayne, not selling his soul, and that John Cena thinking that wrestling needs more Travis Scotts and less selfish Cody Rhodes, and that he thinks that the audience is also selfish. That's where I would come from with John Cena. And then he can go on and he'd say, and I'm going to take this championship and I'm going to retire with it. And the reason is that nobody here is ready to take the mantle. Nobody here is ready to be the next John Cena. And I would rather walk away with this title than leave it in the hands of somebody who doesn't understand the business. Leave it in the hands of somebody who is selfish. Leave it in the hands of somebody who thinks the business revolves around them. And then we would get to SummerSlam event, and you could still have kind of similar stuff, but it's less about ruining wrestling and more about protecting wrestling in his own warped mind. And being resentful of fans thinking that they get this retirement tour. And then what happened at the Rumble? You cheered Jey Uso. I got eliminated from the Rumble. You cheered him. You know what I mean? Like, set all that up. And then John, that way, can come out on that SmackDown before SummerSlam and say, Cody, and do the whole beatdown and do everything. And say, Cody, you've proven a lot to me, but I still don't think you have what it takes. And that's why I'm glad this is a street fight. I'm going to beat some sense into you. I'm going to embarrass you. And I'm going to make sure that you know that you're not QB1. And Cody, I'll tell you right now, if you beat me at SummerSlam, I'll be the first to say that you are. And then that way, John Cena loses to Cody at SummerSlam, have the same match. It's excellent. Shake hands. John raises Cody's arm, gives him the point. And that's the babyface turn. And then Brock Lesnar comes out. And now it's like Brock is almost mad at John Cena because he agreed with the other John Cena. And this idea that John Cena's not protecting the business, now Brock's mad. Because Brock comes from the same school that John Cena does. Brock's 0-2. So now Brock comes out, and his purpose of his character is to protect wrestling the way John Cena wanted to protect wrestling. Brock also thinks that all these young guys are egotistical. Brock also thinks that all these young guys don't understand the business. Brock thinks that was instilled in that 0-2 class that these guys don't get. So that's why now he's mad at John Cena, because John Cena just passed the torch to Cody Rhodes when John Cena said he wasn't going to. Now Brock's mad. So the fact that John Cena passed the torch, he admitted that Cody Rhodes was QB1, and then he got attacked by Brock Lesnar for saying that, now he can show up at the next TV and say, I was wrong about a lot of things, but you guys are in good hands. And I'm happy you guys are in good hands. And and now he can do the same babyface run. So it's really like those tweak those few things. If it were up to me and I could go back in time, that's how I would tweak it. I would love it if it had happened like that. Let me know what you think. You can hit me up at NotSam, Twitter, Instagram, all over the place, of course. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/NotSam Wrestling. Podcast feeds, audio, Spotify, Apple, SiriusXM app. Just search NotSam Wrestling. Make sure that you're subscribed, and we will see you again real soon. Welcome to the last week of John Cena.